Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Harebrained Games. Today we're going to take a look at Lands of Galzyr. This was a impulse purchase I got from Snowdale Design. I originally saw it on Kickstarter, chose not to back it because I generally am not predisposed to enjoyment of story-driven games that don't have some real depth to the gameplay as well as the story. Some people really groove on those. That wasn't me. That said, over time, I've heard from many other groups and people that I've interacted with that this is top of the line when it comes to storytelling, and it might push me over the edge to have me enjoy it. Plus, it has a couple things that are unique to it. So, without further ado, let's just take a look at what's inside. So let's take a look at what comes in Lands of Galzyr. First off, you get a two-sided map. This is the winter side, chock full of details, glorious, glorious details. Coupled with a timer map, this will tell you how long you have on any given session of play, of which you'll be playing multiple sessions if you get involved with the game. Every character has their own card, their own character, well, cardboardy, spinny thingy. Anyway, it's got a very elegant little circular slots for noting what your specialties are, what boomer is good at, or bummer, depending on what your mood is that day. Places for equipment, which I've procured over time. I don't want to give it too much. Definitely have a couple cards unique to boomer, or boomier. And during the course of play, I became afraid during one of my mini ventures, which means that I'm going to be afraid for a little bit. That has game effects that will come along. We also have Karadai, Asala, and more. And it's not sold in any store. A lot of variety of different these you'll be arranged. It's possible that you can respec your character during the course of any of the plays as it goes over time. So the big thing is you have chunky dice, and these dice are going to be standard, your standard black dice, which you'll use for skill checks, many skill checks, and then based on your abilities, you'll be able to swap some of those dice out. This is the second biggest thing, which is the set of cards. All of these are just tons and tons of different bits and pieces of a story or a segment or something going on in the world here of Galzyr. You'll have your character box here for storing cards. It also has a elegant save system when you're done with any given session, because you will play over multiple sessions. You have a very elegant step-by-step way to save your progress, bring it out, and be able to play the game very, very quickly. Probably quicker than any other game I've ever seen. Also comes with a rule book with a barcode here if you wanted to actually just visually understand how it goes. Otherwise, it goes through all the things you need to do. Comes with a couple fun little flavor text things. The welcoming letter is very important for the first-time players. I've ruined my tableau. And then you get a little information, you get a little travel guide and such. So anyway, and the biggest thing, the core element here, is the app. This is the Lands of Galzyr Book of Adventures. And this is where you're going to go for lots and lots of things that go on in the world. If stuff happens in the world, you're going to know about it. You're going to be cued by a lot of these quests and things going on as you're taking quests, because it's all about the quest, baby. And you're going to be using this Book of Adventures to manifest a story. It will tell you what to do. It leads you along the way very well. So that's it for the components. Let's talk a little bit about gameplay without hopefully giving too much away. So whether you're playing 1, 2, 3, or 4 players, you have some decisions to make at the start of an actual campaign. When you're going to do that initial campaign, you're going to decide competitively or cooperatively. That will determine what initial cards you have, what global cards you're going to be starting with. And then, based on that, you can decide what characters you're going to play. And you can play any 1 to 4 characters. The beauty of this game is the elegance of its casualness as far as being able to introduce. You can introduce a character at any time. Once if you've played 2 or 3 sessions and someone wants to play, you can start them out, and because there's no skill level progression per se in a stark way, they can join in, they can be part of the adventures, etc. The joy of this game is in the storytelling. The skill checks are a way to branch that storytelling. It's not going to be more than that. That said, again, we have health, gold, and the gold you spend. Again, we talked about this, where this is sort of a skill check that happens. We have equipment that comes along, and all of this is born of stories. Now, every one of these has a different story, and I'm not even going to begin to tell you, but they all have a different backstory. There is so much story going on here as you're traveling around. You've got these cards and see how they slip in and slide in. And based on whether it's evening, summer, or winter, when you start a campaign, it's going to sort of give you a time of year to start, say November or April or whatever, decides which side of the map, and then it's going to give you a random day of the week to start, and based on that, it's going to give you different adventures. So it's not simply a one and done affair per se. On your turn, you can take your character and you can move it up to 2 spaces. Again, you can, lots of ways to change that. You can have lots of effects. You can see, and I'm going to give you detail of all the different things that can go on as you're going through here. Skill checks, card types, terrain types, adventure types. Anyway, lots and lots of iconography, but it becomes very second nature very quickly. What you're going to do, and it's all the time, it's like, decide to move, and then wherever you move, you always have to take a quest. Now, a lot of times you're going to get personal quests. A lot of these people will start up with personal required mandatory quests, and you'll take those. But you also have an opportunity to do quests like global quests. You also always have sort of a, what do they call this? But it's a sort of a board, an adventure board. They have a name for it. I keep forgetting. But basically, you're always going to have 3 quests available to choose at any given time. And so when you were looking around, you get a lot of decisions. So you don't have to get pigeonholed into one particular place. You can be doing a lot of different quests. Notice board, that's what it's called, the notice board. So these are always going to be here, all 3 of them. These will map to locations, or Chabahar, and then Aran is here, and then the third possible quest is in Rhinestam. Yeah, and you'll notice as part of my play they even had a local event, and so this is something that you can do that's new and refreshing that pops up in these places too. Normally these places have a set of different quests that you can go on that are sort of standard stuff. And the beauty of this is that when you're taking these quests, it's going to ask you some things. Do you have certain keywords? Keyword tags are very important because as you collect keyword tags, it will branch even a previous story a bit and show some permanency to the things that you've done in the world in a very clever way. Again, very driven by story. So say, for example, well, let's do this. Let's do this generic thing. I was in Hazembe. Why? Because I had a quest that involved trying to find somebody in Hazembe. That didn't go well. My roll sucked. So now we're going to go, you know what? I'm going to go here and here, and I am going to do a quest. Now, this is because there's no city, so there's no necessary quest there that I could do. Oh, wait. Yeah. Why did I not? My bad. Aran Shabir. This helps remind you of where the actual quests are, so I should be a little more mindful of that. Okay, so we're here, and you'll notice there isn't any particular burning quest I need to do. I don't have anything particularly astounding here. I do have a quest to get to Rhinestam at some point, but because I need to seek answers. But hey, what do you do? That's my main passion. So what we're going to do is a global event then. These global events, you flip it over and you go, okay, what's the first thing that applies? Is it Friday? No, it's currently Saturday. Am I at a settlement? I am not. Am I in a grassland? I am not. Am I in a forest? I am not. I'm in a hill. So we're going to do this quest. It's 159. We go over here and we type 159. Now skip to the end if you don't want to know the quest. But it's going to say, does the library... Okay, let's pretend that it had 285 available and it said, a lot of librarians come out and attack you out of nowhere. Do you want to attack them or do you want to buy them off? I'm going to give a fake scenario so I don't spoil anything. If it said, hey, I want to give money, then I would just spend money and I would say I choose that option. Probably the librarians are happy with their money. They buy better books for the library and now you're here among the land. Or it could be like, I want to fight them. So fight them, and then it's going to give you one of these skills that it needs you to use as part of a test. In that branching, you'd say, oh, well, if it wants you to use the eye for perception, that's not very good. What's good for me is fighting. Fight. And so wherever you see, whatever the test is, it always gives you one of these 6 icons. Let's do books. Books is librarian. You can choose. You always have these. These are your general purpose. One side equals one of these, and they're not very, very likely to win. So then you go, you know what? But I can swap out any of these for any dice. Now, what's special about this? Well, if you have, say, the book, if your test is going to be right here on this camping, whatever they call it, they call that survival. So if I have a survival test, I'm going to be really happy because I get to swap two of these out. And what does that give me? Well, these dice are awesome because you get two sides that have doubles. So that's two successes right there instead of one. Here, the most I'd be able to get on any dice is one success. But here you got two successes, and not only that, but you also have additional opportunities for success on anything adjacent to it. So say, for example, that I had a book and I needed to test my book skill. Well, while this isn't going to help me like most optimally with the camping survival skill, it still has a higher chance of getting a book than any of these generic dice. So even the adjacent ones are going to be helpful. So I'm going to swap these two. This is not, and this is actually bad because this isn't going to give me a book at all. Like if I'm over here, it's going to give me two sides of this, and then it's going to give me two one-sided of this side and that. So that's bad. So you definitely don't want to take any dice that aren't adjacent to the test. So the book test. So I have 2 dice and 3, and now I have 5. Now I'm going to roll. I'm going to roll these. Okay, you ready? And look what I have. I have 1, 2 books. Yay, 2 books. So I could choose to re-roll once, but I have to re-roll it all. And if I don't, and that's take the result of the second one, unless I have one of about 1,000 different pieces of equipment or something different that I can do, because there's so much special equipment and so much gear and so many ways to help work with it. And if you've got multiple players, you can even group up if you're in the same spot and kind of share some things to try to help your success. In any event, I have 2, so I would say I would go back to here, and there would be a screen. Just don't want to give it away, and it would say, hey, what was the outcome? Did you get 0 successes, 1 success, 2 success, 4 successes? I would select the 2 successes, and then it would branch out and tell me how I did. The librarians are not in terribly, you beat 2 of the librarians up, but the other 2 ran away with the golden book of alchemy, and now they've poisoned your chia pet. I don't know. Anyway, you see how it's going, and then it'll say, okay, end of scene, you're done, congratulations, you've just gone through that particular branch of the story. And that's how the skill checks works, and that's how the game works. And you're going to go through that. And you're going to have times, for example, I have an effect here called Afraid. When I advance the marker, this will go away. This is a negative effect, a debuff. And it's going to make it harder for me on certain things, like I can't choose the highest difficulty of a skill check, for example, because I'm afraid, etc. When you are done, when you get to the end of this, you complete this segment of the campaign, and then you can begin again. You just start another session. It's like role playing. You just start another session. In this case, at the end of this, if you're ready to pack it up for the night, you go through, and each of these has a particular icon that says, okay, some of the cards you keep and you just put here, so you save them off for your next campaign. And then anything here, some of these will say, hey, trade this out for another card. For example, this says trade this out. If you're saving the game, you replace this card with a different card, which is going to have a different startup, and then you roll it back out and you start again. If you want to reset the campaign, you can, and it gives you instructions for that if you want to just flat out start from scratch. But the key of this, with the save game and then returning again, is that it's keeping state. It's persisting some of the state in the world, some of the choices you made, so that in subsequent runs, you're going to find yourself doing more interesting things, or seeing the world mature or change in fun story snippet ways. So that's a bit of Lands of Galzyr. I hope that it was at least somewhat explanatory into how you actually go about playing it. Now let's get into my final thoughts. Okay, final thoughts on Lands of Galzyr. As always, we go over the cons first, and then the pros, and then my final thoughts. As far as cons go, I don't have a tremendous amount to say that is negative insofar as the aspects of the game go. I did find it was a little bit disjointed to learn, which is odd given the fact that there's such a wealth of information. I really like that, like from the time you don't even open the page and it tells you, hey, are you a visual learner? Go here. And you know what? The designer himself goes over it in very clear and very enunciated terms, how to play, what to do, how to set up. Again, it was a little disjointed trying to figure out where everything went. I kind of figured out that the welcoming letter is important. It really is. Not only is it important, but for starting out, but setting up, resetting up if you want to reset up the game. Other than that, I don't have any real negatives as far as this game does this wrong. I didn't feel any sense of negativity towards it as I was playing it. Let's get into the pros. The pros are I mirror the common verdict as far as how it goes with the style and the artwork of the game is very, very rich, very unique. You really feel when you lay out that board that you have a fully fleshed out world, someone's mind, all the stories. I love it. Waste Knights did this as well, second edition, where you feel like the world building is building the world and then put this game in it and tell you bits and pieces of that world, knowing there's a tremendous amount of the rest of the world to explore. And that's important in a narrative storytelling game. It's very important. And so that part works really well. Lots and lots of introductory information that you're going to get to really immerse yourself. If you're like, okay, I'm in it for the story is here. Even your characters and everything. I was not at all turned off by the anthropomorphic nature of the game, even though it takes place in a real world setting, but with woodland creatures and stuff. I actually thought that was very clever. I give it the clever points. Again, the map, the story, the cards, the detail that you've got, the organization, once you understand it, makes sense. Nice thick dice, nice thick pieces. Your player boards are nice and thick and solid. Very little bowing and warping. Your special ability circle. You like in circle of truth kind of thing on that board is you get to fit those nice like smooth but chunky plastic pieces. No complaints, none at all about the components you're going to receive. The app as well is the complementary app that's required to play it is absolutely what it needs to be, no more, no less. Again, I'm very happy about that because it doesn't have so many bells and whistles that you're going to have to worry so much about updates ruining it, or you go too far with the pizzazz and then iOS updates and whatever negate it over time. It erodes. That has been an issue more in the last couple years for me than it was initially when apps first started coming out, because those apps now 10 years later, the ones that held up the most are the ones that try to do the least and just do the least elegantly. The story does the least elegantly. Decent background music. I turned it off for some people were annoyed, but on the app. But again, the app itself is just a simple lookup. It's the story of adventures, or whatever they call it, or the book of adventures, and that's what it is. It's a book of adventures. Probably could have printed it out too, but it would have been a massive page size. But it works fine. It's very simple. It's like it helps you set up the game, and then you just type in a number that corresponds to a card, and you're going to get matched up. I don't have any issues with the storyline as you're playing it either. I think the 4 characters are very unique. I think the story itself shows tremendous depth. I do agree that this breaks some ground with the way that it sort of sets persistency in the world as you play over the course of several turns. It takes and does the legacy aspect correctly. It is efficient, effective, informative, creative, and deep. You play this game and you meander around. Don't be in a hurry, and you're going to find things to do. You're going to go on, you're going to have little tests. It's all going to be little tests, situations you run into. It will affect your world. It will affect your character. It will affect how the world reacts to your character, to your stories as you go by. You're going to be taking advantage all over the map. And the thing is, once you're done with a particular session, you can go right to the next session. These sessions are 30, 45, 50, hour and a half sessions. They're not, especially at lower player counts, you're not in it for a grueling evening. You're in it for like, oh, that was pleasant. I had a good time. I have memorable things. Do we put it away for now and bring it back out? Great. Here's the great thing about this game is that you don't have this tremendous burden about pulling it back out. Like if you're playing Frosthaven, Gloomhaven, any of these major games, and you're pulling it back out, you know you're putting it in the box, and you know you're going to have to take some time to set it back out. This has one of, if not the best, streamlined solution for me able to quickly put things in the box, and quickly pulling them out, and like really takes almost no effort at all to go set things back up and go on another adventure and go on another quest. Meanwhile, because you have some persistent state, you're going to see your next run throughs of the game working differently, going through different situations. You're gonna find all kinds of unique and clever things going on as a result of your previous actions. Keying off of them. Depending on these choices, you'll have those choices, and you can play that for many sessions without getting into any fear of duplication or such. And then when you're done, you could especially if you're a solo player, you could play it through with one character over multiple sessions. It has a perfectly reasonable, very clear reset, and then you play it again in the next sessions, and you go down with different characters, and everything that it says it claims to be about storytelling is true. That said, and let's get into my final thoughts, because even though I don't have anything negative to say about the game for the game's sake, okay, I don't. The game does exactly what it sets out to be, intends to be. It fires on all cylinders in trying to teach you the game. It's almost like a very humble presentation. Here's our game. Let me answer any questions you have. I just love that vibe. I just love that servant's heart from the game design team as they're going about answering questions about this game for others, and really just presenting to you this wonderful game and story that they've concocted. That said, it isn't going to change your mind if you aren't necessarily completely fulfilled with just the narrative storytelling aspects of a given game. If you need more meat on the bones, you're not going to find it here any more than you're going to find it in Tales of the Arabian Nights, etc. At the end, there isn't a real... You pick a character, it has certain propensities for success. Part of that's good. You're just like, hey, you're going down, you're meandering into a story. Let's see where the road takes us. Okay, you go into the situation. You don't necessarily have a solid way to predict what's going to happen, or what the situation, or what the... You kind of get hints as far as like, oh, I'll bet if I take this option out of the 4 options presented to me, that it might play to the strengths of what my characters have. And I really like that, your characters, they have their equipment. They can gain more equipment. They lose equipment. I like that there's no... This isn't a, screw up once and they kick you out of the pool kind of game. You're going to have success and failure, but they're not going to be stark binary success, stark binary you lose, insert another quarter. You're going to have opportunities to kind of meet partial success, or if you don't, if you just roll poorly on some given test, you could wind up having to take a debuff that messes with you for a few turns, and whatever, and just kind of like, but again, none of this is fatal. You don't run into any sort of fatal situations during the course of play for the most part. You run in and you go, okay, did I have the most optimal experience imaginable? Did I have the most pessimal experience imaginable? And all points in between could be where you land as you play through this continuing saga and story. That said, do not go, if you're looking for like really deep, like role-playing kind of aspects or stuff, definitely pick up Skyrim, pick up Frosthaven, Gloomhaven, Jaws of the Lion, Stars of Ikarios, Age of Dark. I mean, I could name on and on all of the ones that are going to give you a nice story, but packed with awesome RPG leveling up elements. None of that's there. This game, unabashedly and unashamedly, is about taking you through a story as a fun character in a fun world that remembers. The North remembers, and so does Lands of Galzyr. And so, no, it didn't change me from being like, oh, now I'm into narrative storytelling adventures, now I'm satisfied. I found it satisfying because I placed myself in the mindset of what someone who would enjoy this game tremendously does, which is, I'm here for the ride. I get a few choices. If the tags line up, if I've got a test and I happen to have a piece of equipment or something, the tags line up, or I can use a special ability. I like the fact that you can, I like the fact that you get mulligans. I like the fact that you get after dice, after that pivotal roll, that you get opportunities after the fact to make adjustments and such. I like that I like that when I stopped hurrying and going, okay, I have we have something to do. I mean, this is something that other games that are role-playing kind of do, is they give you a timer, a pretty rough timer. Like, I've got to get Journeys in Middle-earth, for example. I've got to get, other than the weenie adventure mode, I've got to get through. I've got to race through here. I'd love to stop and smell the flowers, but I can't. I've got to keep going. I have to, or else I'm not going to win. Here, you can stop. You can smell. You can go this direction. You can go that direction. There's always another day to play another session. And that's delightful and peaceful, and I don't mind the test thing. I like the fact that you can go, well, I'd like to steer towards something that plays to the strengths of my character. I think the dice thing is clever. Like, okay, you have your dice, but you can insert them. You can insert better dice if you just kind of steer to the strengths of your character. You will likely have a better opportunity for a more optimal result. Nothing wrong with that. And that's why when it came to like listing cons, pros, and final thoughts, none of the things I'm saying that are not like glowing and positive or anything wrong with the game. It's not. It's just me as the audience gave it a risk. It's like, glad I bought it. Yeah, I'm glad I bought it because I'm going to share it with friends who can get the most out of it. I would not buy this if I was really, really needing that meaty RPG leveling up system, advancing a storyline, and feeling powerful. I would not look at this game for that. But for what it sets out to do, for what it's trying to give you as a journey of incredible depth, I mean, the world building is sensational. I will say that I've never grown fond of games where you've got sort of either a map here on the app and then your player board, or your player board, here map, and then story on the side, because it's as far as story building, this is really, really good. You feel like you can recognize these places, and you'll read story. You get to a town or a city or some location or whatever, and you'll get your little story, and you'll finish your story and do your skill. Then you go back to the map and you look at it. It does make the map more cosmetic. Let me give you an example of one of the greatest world building games, and it might surprise you, and that is the Micro Macro Crime City. If you want a game, like, you look at that map, and that map is your game, and it's your world, and there are so many details in it, and there are so many stories that you exude out of it. That's the whole point of that particular game, is that you're solving crimes across this map. All you're staring at is the map. There's cues, clues, and everything's in the map. That's a real contiguous and delightful experience that you're not going to get if you're just staring at this going, this map is cosmetic, but the actual action is taking place here on the app, and it's words, it's text. That's a small thing just to say that I think that as I would love to see someday that we make more strides towards fusing the two together. So that said, what?
I'm gonna go snake a burger.
Oh, okay, cool. See ya. So in short, if you are looking for a storytelling adventure, this is probably the best one this side of, say, 2019 that I've seen, as far as really imbuing a sense of adventure and wonder, and the ability to just freely and happily wander through an intelligent, sophisticated, smartly reactive world. To give you some really interesting and memorable subquests and subplots. I hope they continue this. I don't know whether they ever would feel comfortable trying to insert something more like a leveling. I think that just brings out, if they're really focused and they love this land and they want to continue in it, I can see them doing sequels to this or additional content kind of things. Maybe a few tweaks are there to make something more memorable, but honestly, it's about the story, and the story is solid. So that's it. It's kind of a yay. So anyway, thanks again, and we'll see you next time on Harebrained Games.